evening again, Mayor. I've got 3 points that I'd like to bring up. The first is I understand the Riverwalk land valuations are now available. Will you all address that before you go home here this evening in terms of whether they're going to be kept secret or if they are going to be made available to the public? First point. Second point is I would ask to hear from the city attorney and go back and revisit the election of the vice mayor here this evening. This is a charter requirement. This is not some resolution or some ordinance where you may well have some discretion over. Is this not a charter requirement that it speaks here? It says the vice mayor shall be elected at the first meeting of the newly elected council or non-election year. So I'm not sure where you're getting the authority to defer this tonight. So I wonder if we could hear from the city attorney on that before we go home, if she wants to reflect on it a little. Second thing I'd ask her to reflect on and that is the nomination process here. It's my understanding we've adopted Robert's Rules of Order here in the city. And I do believe Robert's Rules of Order preclude the chairman from making any nominations. So if the attorney concurs, it would seem to me we need to go back and revisit that altogether, Mayor. The third thing that I have here is, and I just want to remind you, in October and in November, I brought before your attention the need to make some changes to the way this city is administered. The ability of council to look in on the performance of department heads was used as an example. But Mayor, since we've been here the last time in early December, do you realize the problems that have cropped up? I mean, the median disclosure came out. We just haven't been doing any fertilizer or herbicides or pesticides for 4 or 5 years. So you've been up there pounding yourselves. What's wrong with our medians? How much more do we have to spend? And it took a long time for us to come to understand. Problem is, no one is maintaining the medians. The fuel tax debacle that we had here just a short while ago, we've gotten assurances that this smart card process had that nailed down tighter than a drum. But we find out finance staff is doing their reporting on a monthly basis, handling 2,500 gallons on average in losses with no concerns. The CFO announced that he didn't know when the bank recs were done last year. The information dump from HR, sensitive information, just sent out willy-nilly in an email. And then the City Hall kitchen, the pump pipes leaking, and from what I understand, leaking for a while. So Mayor, I want to remind you that I believe, had promised that this month we would get serious in terms of new ordinances, curtailing the abilities of the manager, either by ordinance or by a charter amendment in tying with next year's election. So is that still on the table, Mayor?
Yes, it is. Thank you. Corey.
Corey Berman, candidate for Zone 2 City Commission. I have 2 issues. First, I'm going to speak about the fact of no accountability of our manager or his employees. Also, the transparency in our city. We had an incident twice where the employee's personal information was sent out to wrong people. What was done about this, and why wasn't the public notified of the major issue we had? Did the employee that sent the information out have any sort of reprimand? Do we have any answers to that? You're sitting there stone-faced. I mean,
You're making a presentation.
Are we paying for the employees for the possible damage that was done to them by supplying a lifelock or something like that? Do we have issues with our citizens who pay by credit cards? Is their information being compromised also? Are they being protected? How are we going to solve this? Second issue is, I am the co-chairman of the Audit and Budget Committee. Vice chairman. At the last meeting, I asked for a study on HR. I sent Greg an email asking for information on it. I was told I'm overstepping my bounds. I believe that the council asked us to find ways to cut the budget, save our citizens money, and get our budget in line. If I ask for information about privatizing a department and ask them to find out from other cities, counties, about having their privatization company come in and talk to us, their third-party companies, so we can save money. If we have this whole department that's now 3 departments put into one, we know nothing about it. We aren't getting the information before the meetings. We're going to a meeting that's lasting 4 hours or more, and we aren't able to get down to the bottom of it. We really need guidance from City Council. We need you guys to tell the city manager and the employees, if we're trying to cut the budget, we're trying to work this to bring answers to the City Council, that they need to cooperate with us. Because we're getting nowhere, such as a fuel tax issue, where we were told at our meeting that there was no issue whatsoever. Everything's taken care of, all the cans are tagged and everything else. So we need you guys to direct your employees to give us the information.
Thank you. Newton White.
Good evening, Newton White, Renner Road, Quarter Orange, candidate for District 4. Folks, I was told that the city had not repaved a road in over a year, and that not keeping the pavement in good shape will cost us more to move on when it gets done, because the road base will get damaged and it'll cost a lot more to dig it up and fix it. I've looked into this. What I found was more disturbing than a pothole or a bad stretch of road. Money was budgeted in fiscal years 13 and 14. Almost the entire amount for fiscal year 13 was carried over to 14, when more money was budgeted, including another $75,000 for a third-party consultant to examine our roads. I guess our city does not have anyone competent to grade pavement. What was disappointing to learn of more neglect, and unlike our medians and public landscape areas, there is budgeted money and an outside contract labor to do the work. It cannot be blamed on being short on people or chronic unfilled positions, another problem for another day. What should be more upsetting than the blatant neglect of what was listed as a 26-year cycle program? Public Works cannot produce the program plan. I requested the paving plan, and what I got from the Public Works Director was this quote: "I am not prepared to provide a list of proposed streets to be paved in 2014 yet. We are putting that together now." I have also requested the past history and found that nothing has been paved since early 2012, and the excuse that the projects were deferred because some other work may need to be done. I believe we need to think about this for a minute. According to the documents I have, there is a 26-year cycle plan that cannot be found and shown to me. The program was neglected and deferred, and now we're past the first quarter of fiscal year 14 with no plan to spend the over $1 million that's accumulated for paving. Responsible people should be asking how these budget requests were prepared and approved and voted into existence by your council without a plan that can be produced. How did staff arrive at the budget? Does more or less need to really be spent? How many things are sitting out there still being neglected? What are we paying for? And why wasn't council asked if it was okay to defer something that they had approved and budgeted for and were expecting to be done? They just deferred the money that you guys voted for, that we paid for, and didn't do it, and it's sitting out there and not done, and it's most likely going to cost us a lot more when we get around to doing it.
Thank you. Jack Wiles.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Manager, Council. I'm Jack Wiles. My son Brad Wiles was here tonight. He was going to talk, but I asked him to forego his time and allow me to just say a few words. My son is the owner of Atlantic Marine. He's owned it since 2006. He bought the business in December 2006. At that time, he had 3 employees, and they were doing $900,000 in business. Since then, 7 years of his sweat, hard work.